Man, these days, time just seems to get away from me. I'm sure Mon-El slash Valor slash Mone'l slash Lar Gand understands. From here on out, he's Mon-El. Yep, it's Mon-El's turn to be highlighted as a Superman analog. Mon-El is a complicated character with many reboots and is himself a retelling of the Golden Age story of Halk Kar, Superman's big brother. The reason I call him by multiple names is that his name is actually Lar Gand, but when he was first discovered, it happened to be a Monday, and they figured he was from the House of El, so they called him Mon-El. And since then, everything else has been an attempt to have a less goofy name. Whether a fully grown Superman, Superman as a boy, or a clone, Mon-El encounters some version of Superman or possibly Supergirl, befriends them before suffering lead poisoning. In short, he is a Superman-connected character who, through some means, gets trapped out of time until the 30th century. In just about every version, Mon-El joins up with the Legion of Superheroes and becomes their most powerful member. He is a Daxamite, which is a related species to Kryptonians, though their weaknesses are flipped. Lead, which blocks radiation, like kryptonite radiation, kills him, but kryptonite is actually the main ingredient in the cure. He is one of the reasons for issues with the Legion of Superheroes in the various DC reboots. His origins had been so closely tied with Superboy that it was difficult to keep going without explaining away their relationship, hence the pocket dimension Superboy. It even resulted in a brief period where Daxamites retained their pre-crisis power levels, rather than the nerfed levels that the post-crisis Kryptonians had developed. But on to the brass tacks of the character. He's Superboy's big brother. In most versions, good to a fault. It was an accident that caused him to be exposed to lead, and to save his life, he was placed in the Phantom Zone. He stayed there for 1,000 years, able to see what happened in our reality, but unable to influence anything. For reference, this was repurposing of a device that Kryptonians used for their prisoners. The Legion eventually found him and figured out a cure, and he resumed his life in the far future. His own sense of purpose in his heroism is what drove him initially, though later versions would tie on some revisions to increase his importance. Valor, his 90s version, was established as the person who seeded, not in a gross way, world after world, starting the colonies that would eventually form the civilization of the Legion's timeline. As a result, he was seen as a progenitor of all galactic civilization. That version was arguably a more mythic hero to the rest of the team than Superman. Something of an interesting change in the dynamic that usually is seen as the impetus for the existence of the Legion. But oh God, the costumes he wore over the time. I am generally a fan of the classic suit. My only objection is that the inverted Superman color scheme looks wrong to me. Like, I like red costumes fine usually, Captain Marvel is my favorite character, but I think having blue as the accent color is what gets me. The two primary colors clash. As a result, the costume typically works better for me when one or the other is a darker color. But this is super subjective, and for some reason it doesn't bother me when it's reversed, so what do I know? Later on, however, he wore a very 90s version of the costume. Meanwhile, I actually really dug his early 2000s costume, but then I liked that uniform stripe design of that era of the Legion. He had a pretty famous appearance on the recent Supergirl show, though with a very different personality, and that was a pretty faithful adaptation of the costume. I think what I ultimately love about Mon-El is that he is a perfect example of the type that the Legion of Superheroes creates through the lens of a Superman analog. Simple premise with a shockingly complicated and continuity-reliant history. And as is common with the Legion of Superheroes, he was allowed to be a bit more mature in his relations, and was notably linked with Shadowlass in most continuities. Also, I do these mostly from memory, so if you want more information about these characters, there are better write-ups that go into greater detail and cite proper sources. A really good one for the Legion of Superheroes is the Legion of Super Bloggers. But yeah, I just love Mon-El. He's a great example of all the weirdness that comic books have. Going back to the very foundation, he's a Silver Age character based on a Golden Age character with a convoluted history, but he makes sense and he carves a very distinct niche from Superman slash Superboy in the DC lore. Very cool character.